Hello, hello. Good evening. I'm Gus. I'm from the Google AI DevRel team. And my main goal is to help developers use Google Tech the best way possible, right? For the last year, I've been working non-stop, tirelessly, every day, every hour on the Gemma models that you might have heard about. And today I would like to go through a little bit of what's available, why it matters, and why I'm so passionate about it. And my goal is I'll go through the content. I'm more than happy to answer any questions. I'll try to linger around later if you have more questions. And if you want to find me online, I forgot to put all my links here, of course. But it's an improvement. Last time I forgot to say my name, so that's... I just quick thing, I recorded a workshop. And I was paying a lot of attention to the content, blah, blah, blah. And then later, one of the feedbacks was, Gus, you forgot to say your name at the beginning of the workshop, and I had to edit a video to do that because the workshop was like 45 minutes. And I was like, should I record everything again? I said, no, let me just do a horrible editing. Anyway, let's go talk about Gemma models and why they matter. So, I don't know if follow around, Google has been working with AI and was machine learning before for a while, right? And give me a second. Sorry. And for a while, we've been publishing this work and enabling the community to use these tools, to build on that. So you can see a bunch of papers that we've produced, but you can also see this timeline of AI-related products and frameworks and models that we've released to the community as a sometimes open, sometimes as an API. So you can see there are some important names here. For example, there's TensorFlow 2016, there's JAX, there's TPU, there's the BERT. We have Transformers here, 2018, AlphaFold, and many, many others. So we've been releasing these AI-related products for a while. So this is something that we kind of know how to do, right? Although recently a lot of people start talking about it. We've been doing this since we used to call this machine learning, which is... it's weird, right? But one important aspect for us that we always try to pay attention is openness. Of course, we have proprietary stuff, products, but having open platforms for people to build on, to use and create cool stuff, this is very, very important for multiple reasons. First, we believe that AI is for everyone. And if we think right now, it's like... anyone that can kind of write can use AI tool, which is a change, right? In the past, if you are a software developer, there was a bar there, right? Not everyone could be a software developer on day zero. You have to learn how to code something. Now what you need to know is how to basically speak English, right? Sometimes not even that. You can speak. So AI for everyone is very important. And the other important thing for Google is always meet developers where they are. So whenever you're creating new tools or products, we want to make them available on the tools that you are using already, right? As much as possible. And we also would like to build on an ecosystem of frameworks that we already have. We have frameworks to do a lot of things like Android, Chrome, Firebase, Google Cloud, of course, so it's amazing. I'm here, I have to say that. So the idea is we've been building this trust of products, and we want to keep pushing on that. And that's why we released the Gemma Open Models in February. So keep up with the dates, right? We released Gemma Open Models in February. They are large language models. You type a text, it will produce text for you. The version 1 was English only, text to text. We released a 2B and a 7B. If you are not part of LLMs and stuff like that, 2B and 7B are number of parameters. 2 billion parameters, 7 billion parameters. This is to tell you that the 7B is larger, probably better, right? But also requires more resources. But let's not go too much in that details. Anyway, we released this Gemma Open Models, February, and it was fun. We did a lot of work. We had some principles in mind. One of them was make the models responsible by design. So one thing about GenAI is that it's very good at doing bad things, right? It makes very easy for you to create fake information, fake images. It's very good. So we try to make sure that our models at least try to be as responsible as possible from training to the evaluation to everything. That adds, of course, a lot more work to the models. We didn't release anything. We want to make sure models are responsible by design. We, of course, want to make sure the benchmarks were the best possible, and they were. We want to make sure that anyone could use them and build stuff on it, start a project using them as a base. And we want, of course, to foster community innovation. So coming to these events, talking to you, talking to many, many others, make sure that you can build other cool stuff with those models. This is was our principle back then. And we, remember I said, be where developers are. So when we released the models, on the first day, it was available on all these platforms here, right? So we had it was available on Kaggle, it was available on Google Cloud, JAX, all of those. NVIDIA, Hugging Face, PyTorch, all of them. We had versions for all of it. So if you are using this, you could use our models from start. And what we saw from the community is that on the first week, we got another like 30 integrations with new services that I wasn't aware. I learned a lot in this first week, a lot about stuff that I didn't know were so popular. But the community started to make these models available everywhere. And this is still what's happening. So whenever we release a new model, it's probably available on the framework you like in a week. As of today, we have more than 60 million downloads for all the Gemma models, so it's quite popular. And we have many, many spaces. Spaces are applications people build on Hugging Face. There's many of them for to play. So the idea, what I'm trying to show here, is that the community really embrace these models. And this is only for Gemma 1, right? These are a bunch of posts or in GitHub repositories where people start to build stuff. So there's, for example, a mixture of experts. There's Gemma in other languages. One thing that we learned after we released the model is that Gemma is very good to learn other languages. It's an English-only model, but in the mixture of data that was used, there are other languages there, many other languages. And there's one specific detail, which is the tokenizer. I'm not going to go into technical detail. It will take half an hour. Tokenizer is the way you convert text into numbers to give to the model, right? Machine learning models are basically math equations. That's what they do. They don't know what's text, right? Although they create text, they don't know what's text. They receive numbers, only numbers. So to convert these numbers, these words to numbers, there's a tokenization that you have to do. Our tokenizer is very large. It's larger than all the other tokenizers for all the other models. So what it means, it can convert to numbers basically any character that exists, or most of them. So that makes easy for you to fine-tune Gemma for Japanese, for example, Chinese, Korean, and many, many other languages. That's what people did. And the results were very good, right? That become even a problem. I'll get to the problem later. But so there's a lot of stuff that's happening. This was February, right? We released Gemma in February. When it was April, when it was March, we released Gemma 1.1. When it was April, we released Code Gemma and Recurrent Gemma. Code Gemma is a Gemma 1 variation that's specialized to generate code. So you can ask a code question, you can give code and ask for to refactor, to find a bug, to find issues, to complete the code you can use as an assistant. And, the other important thing, when I say Gemmas are open models, right? So they can run on your computer. They don't need a server. They can all run on your phone, on your browser. They run on your things. And you could have this code assistant learning completely local, everything local. There's no cloud, nothing, right? We also released Recurrent Gemma, which is a more researchy version. Gemma models are based on the transformers architecture. Transformers is what everyone is using for generative AI. But recurrent Gemma is based on a technology that was before transformers, which is recurrent neural networks. And that has some advantages and disadvantages, but we have a version for researchers to keep pushing, right? This was April. And then April has been a long time. So what's new? When it was May, we released our first multimodal open model, which is PalyGemma. PalyGemma enables you to do image and text and generates text. What can you do with that? You can do a lot of things. You can get an image and ask, segment for me the cat. Find the cat. What's in the image? Explain the image. describe the image. You can do a bunch of, you can ask questions about an image to the model. Again, Gemma is also an open model. It's also running completely on your machine if you want. You can run, of course you can deploy on Google Cloud, we'll talk about this later, but it's an open model that you can own. You can have it for you and play with that any way you want, right? Almost any way you want. Again, community went crazy, did a lot of cool stuff with it. There's a bunch of people posting on social doing cool projects. And this is the fun thing. But that was May, right? May is being a long time, right? It's been like many, many months ago. What's new, right? Tell me what's new. When it was June or July, something like that, we released Gemma 2, which is the updated version of Gemma. It's, again, open models. You have access to it on your machine. You go to Kaggle, Hugging Face, download, play with it. We released a 2, 9, and 27B billion parameters. So the 2 billion continues to be the one that's small, super powerful. You can play on Colab for free. You can play on Kaggle with the resources they give you. You can run probably any phone that you have in this room. The 9B is the updated 7B. And it's maybe one of the most powerful models on the size. It's still as of today. And it's been July. It's been July until now is what, 10 years. So it's still one of the most powerful models on that size, which is insane. And it's also English model, text to text, right? And we have the 27B that for, I carried that as a medal, for a month, it was the largest open model, was the best open model on LLM's chat arena. And this is very hard. This is where models compete, right? Not the best benchmark, but it's a good benchmark. And Gemma 27B was the top for a month. Nobody could beat it, which was amazing, right? The cool thing about Gemma 2 is that if you are using Gemma 1, updating, it was basically a string. You change where you download the model, because all the tooling worked exactly the same. So we make sure that for you, if you're building something, we don't want you to, every time we release a new model, you have to, oh, now I have to go and relearn a new framework, a new tool, a new whatever. We try to make sure that you get the benefits without getting all the hassle of updating all your tool chain of things. It was available again in everywhere, everything, even more than the first version. So this was very interesting. We improved documentation, samples, everything. So it was very good. And one important aspect that we did for that is that we enabled Gemma 2 was also available on Google AI Studio. So if you did any Gemini work, Gemini is the big brother of Gemma, let's say. Gemini is our proprietary model. Gemma is the open model. So we have both of them. Gemma was created based on some Gemini technology. Of course, the teams talk to each other. They help each other. But, of course, Gemma is way smaller, less capabilities. But you can try on AI Studio. So if you go right now on AI Studio, you can try any of the 3 Gemma 2 models and keep playing with it and finding if you like it or not, right? It's up to you. You don't need to install anything. It takes like maybe 30 seconds, right? So this is a very cool thing. And at the same release, we also released something called Shield Gemma. Remember I told you that generative models can do, it's very easy for them to do bad stuff, right? It's because technically they complete the text you want, so they can generate any text. What we did with Shield Gemma, we fine-tuned Gemma 2 to make it a safety classifier. What does it mean is that you can give your prompt to Shield Gemma, and it will classify if your prompt has any kind of hate speech or harassment, sexual explicit content, dangerous content on it, and tell you before you send to the model. And then you say, why do I need to do this? Because if you're building an application, you need to protect your users. So you cannot just give anything to the model, right? And you can use Shield Gemma as a first defense. But even with that, the prompt could be malicious, right? You could give a prompt that leads the model to generate stuff that's really, really not cool. So you can also use Shield Gemma when the model gives you an output. So you can do an input, filter out if there's anything wrong, and then you return an error. Give to the model in the middle, that could be a Gemma model, could be any model you want, to be honest. And then you have Shield Gemma to take a look at the output. So this kind of tools is more focused on responsible AI deployment, right? So when you deploy any kind of things like this, you have to pay attention to the inputs, to the outputs, and we are giving tools to help you do that. In the same launch, we released also a tool called Gemma Scope. So we are talking about a model that's 2 billion parameters, right? If you did any machine learning in the past, or if you know a little bit more about artificial intelligence and how models work, one thing is how does this model go from this sentence to this other sentence? If you start to think a little bit about that, that's very hard to understand. And the other problem is when we say 2 billion parameters, 9 billion parameters, you cannot do that math by hand, right? That you cannot, how do you understand what's going on there? It's very hard. So what we did is we created more than 400 models that can help you understand every layer of these models. And this is, of course, very focused on Gemma, right? This Gemma Scope will not work on any other model. It has to be trained on specific models. So you can use that to try to understand why Gemma is returning answer X or Y or Z, whatever it is. So this is the kind of thing that Gemma Scope enables. So this is also more research-oriented. And we have tools. There's a tool on Neuropedia. I didn't put the link there, sorry. But if you search for Gemma Scope, you can find. It helps you see inside the model, right? So there is this video here. Let's see if it plays. So the idea is you give a prompt, and this is what's happening inside the model. Of course, very beautiful visualization. But there's a bunch of matrix multiplications, and then it helps you understand how we get there, which neurons were affected, with which values. You can see most of it. So this helps you understand how model works. And this is very important if you want to do, oops, sorry. Next. Oh, I killed my joke. Let's pretend I didn't say anything. That was July, right? And then you say, okay, Gus, November. It's past Halloween. It's been a long time, at least 5 years. So what's new, really new? We have new stuff. So in October, or September, we released Data Gemma. Data Gemma is a fine-tuned Gemma model of the 27B that does something really cool. So if you use any large language models and you ask a question, what's the GDP of the UK? Right, we are here, let's do UK. I'm pretty sure that whatever answer it gives to you, it's wrong, right? These models are trained with something called a date cut. So they get the data up to a date, whatever date it is, and they clean that data. The model does not know about what's happening now or last month. It knows about what happened last year. So if you ask what's the GDP now, it will probably be the raw model, not an application. The raw model will give you the wrong answer. And this is the same for any number-related information. GDP, how much is $1 per pound? What's the rate for loan? All of that. Or any, what's the population? All of this. So what we did is we created variations of the model that can understand when these kind of questions are asked, and it will give you an answer, but it will do more than that. There is a gigantic database called Data Commons that has all this kind of information. Population, all this kind of geographic, geopolitical information. All of this. It's a gigantic database. So what we do is, whenever you query Data Gemma with a question that you will say, oops, here I should put a number. What it will do, there's two versions. We have a rig and a rag. I'm not going to show you both of them. I'm going to skip the video because I prefer to explain. Both of them work in different ways, but they give you a proper answer. So let's go into... I'm going to skip the video. Yes, this one. So there's rig and rag. Rag, probably most of you know what it is, but let's go rig first. So rig stands for Retrieval Interval Generation. What happens there is, you ask a question. Here the question is, has the use of renewables increased in the world? This is a tough question, right? The model will give you an answer, and you say, renewable energy source now provide over 12%. That number is probably wrong, right? Or it's right for the past, or the model hallucinated this number. That's very common to be wrong, so you never trust these numbers. But what the model does, this fine-tuned Gemma model does is, oh, this is asking a question that data commons can answer. So in the answer of the model, it will put that tag there, DC, in the question for the data commons. So what you do as a developer, you get this answer, you find these tags, and say, oh, I should do a query on data commons. You do a query on data commons, and you replace the result there. The answer of your model will be correct. Will be numerically correct according to the database. So this is one way of doing. There's a paper, of course, explaining how we did it, and you can try to replicate on your data. This is RAG. We have also a RAG version of the model. RAG stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation. You probably heard that if you do GenAI, you heard this RAG many places, right? Our implementation is a little bit different. So what it does is, you ask a question here, the renewables increase in the world. What the model does is, oh, this is a question that should be answered by a database, by data commons. So it rephrases your question to the queries you should send to data commons. It don't even try to answer. It just rephrases and gives you all the queries. You get this answer, throw all the queries on data commons, get all the many tables of results, get all of that, and then you give an answer. Then you get the original question, the new data, and then you say, okay, rephrase this as an answer. And then in this example, we have an example with a notebook you can play with. We use Gemini Pro because the output of this can be gigantic. It's a lot of data. So it probably would go past the context window of this model. So there's two ways of doing this. So this is a way of grounding your model in reality, right? So this is very important. So data commons is a new tool. How do you learn about all of that? There's a bunch of places. We have our cookbook. The cookbook is where you can find a lot of recipes, where it's like, oh, I want to use Gemma with V8. I want to use Gemma with database, other data, Pinecone, or with Postgres, or I want to use Gemma from Transformers, from JAX, from Keras, from whatever place. There are many options. On the cookbook, you'll find many recipes on how to do that. It's very straightforward notebooks you can just copy and learn. So probably your technology of choice is there. If it is not, please leave a feature request. So I want an example of Gemma using technology, whatever, that I like. And then we will try to create one for you and add it to the recipes. So the idea is to enable you to start using as fast as possible. The only thing I'm going to ask for today, right? Only thing is you go to this repository and leave a star. That's it, right? Come on. Doesn't cost you that much, right? Right? I promise I will look into your feature request. But give the star first. So please, that's what pays my salary. No, that's not, but let's leave it like that. So the cookbook is very important. We also have this tag for Gemmaverse, so if you build cool stuff, you post on any social and put the Gemmaverse, so it's easier for me to find. And I'll tell you, I didn't choose the name Gemma. It's not recording, right? At first, I was against it because I had other names that were stole for other stuff. And the Gemma name, if you try to search, there's a lot of women called Gemma. So it's like you put Gemma model, and then it's like, it's very hard to justify to my wife what I'm doing on social. Gemma model, what are you doing, man? So Gemmaverse helps me find, okay? Let's take a look on how to use real quick. I don't know how long I have. I'm pretty sure I still have 2 hours. 9. That's 2 hours? Okay, same. We have the official documentation. You can go to the official documentation, learn everything I said is there. Documented notebooks, examples, everything is there, right? Benchmarks, all these numbers, everything is there. I'm not going to waste your time. Gemma is, of course, it is an open model, but we have a custom license. We are not, first of all, you never heard me say Gemma is open source. We never say that Gemma is not open source. And there's a bunch of reasons. First of all, AI and open source is weird. There's no correct definition. They're still working on that. But we have one specific thing that makes Gemma not open source as of now. Our terms of service blocks you from doing some stuff. And these stuff are doing evil things. That's it. You cannot use for evil. Basically, that's what's written in the thing, right? Can you use in a product, in a commercial product? Yes, go ahead, have fun. Can I use in my company with a million employees? Yeah, go ahead, use it. But don't use for bad things. That's it. So to make sure that you agreed, you go to Kaggle or Hugging Face, and you agree to the terms of service. From there, you can use the model anywhere you want. Here's an example using Keras. It's like 2 lines of code, right? You load the first line, you load. This is the 27B, and then you ask a question. That's it. 2 lines of code. You can run the model and have some inference. You can, of course, do in Keras. You can do fine-tuning. You can deploy the model back. You can upload the model back to Hugging Face, Kaggle. Have other people use your model. So this is we have a workshop on that if you want. I can talk about this later at the end. Again, the documentation I told you again. And let's go to deploy real quick because the guy's looking with evil eyes to me from there. So you can deploy this on Vertex. It's very easy. We have the go to model gardening Vertex AI inside Google Cloud. There's a one-click button. Click deploy. And then you have an endpoint. That's it, running on your cloud. What's the advantage of running this model? You can do basically whatever you want. You have full control. You can add more hardware, run with less hardware, or you can try to tune the model more, do fine-tuning, do anything you want. So open models enable you to do way more things. Here's the page on model gardening. Just to be quick, you can run using GKE, which is Google Kubernetes Engine. If you are more advanced, you want to be able to have more settings, let's say like that. If you want your setting space to be way larger, that's an option. For some people, that's necessary. So we have also that. If you want to run the model asynchronously, if you have a database and you want to run Gemma on a table with 1 million rows, you do something using data flow. You just create a pipeline and let it run, because it, of course, will take a while, right? You can do that. And what I really want from you is I want to know what you build with that. And please ping me. I'm pretty sure I'm going to find a way to give you my social information for LinkedIn and stuff. I guess it's on the page. Tag me, say, hey, I built this. Let me know. We're more than glad to know what people are building. Go to our docs, have fun. And in the 28th of November, yes, 20th of November, I'm going to give a workshop here on how to fine-tune these models. It will be like, it's longer because we're doing a hackathon on that weekend. It's a hackathon on Gemma model, so you can come build whatever you want, create a team, and build something using Gemma models. It's going to be a global hackathon, but we will have a local event where I come present, explain how to fine-tune, so you get a quick start. And then they'll have prizes and stuff like that. But of course, you don't care. You care for learning, right? So that's what matters. And 28th of November, I'll post this on more social later. And thank you very much. Do I have time for question? No.
Yes, question. Yes, you can go for questions. Ooh. Is there any questions?
Oh, there's a bunch of hands. I only answer easy questions.
Hello, yeah, thanks so much for the talk. I was super interested in the recurrent Gemma option. So why have you decided to go back to the recurrent models there? Are you probably looking into state space models as a kind of if you're playing around with different architectures beyond transformers? So just super curious about that.
Yes, of course, that's a very good question. So why did we do recurrent Gemma? Transformers is amazing and all for training. And that's why it became the main architecture, because you have to train with a lot of data, and transformers enable you to train in parallel with a lot of data and a lot of larger memory, a larger model. But when you use the model, the larger is the prompt, the more memory it needs, and it explodes after a while. When you do with recurrent neural networks, you don't have that problem. You can make your input not scale with memory directly. But of course, training would be a problem. That's why we moved. We kind of learned how to do large trainings with recurrent neural networks. So we released the 2B, which is the first one. And in June, we released a 9B, exactly the same idea. Was on par with our 7B model. But it's still research, because we are trying there. They have pros and cons. But it's there, and we are still evolving how to do these models with a little bit different architecture, to get this benefit from memory, for example. That's a very important one, but we are still working on to make it better. So there's a lot of research on Gemma models. We are blocked by ability to publish them. That's it's kind of my fault, but don't tell anyone. We are, because there's a lot of research, there's a lot of stuff, so there's more to come, hopefully soon. Make sense?
So it's just the second part of the question is, it was, I mean, thanks so much for the explanation. It is also what I understood is that you're trying to work with the quadratic complexity.
Yes.
But then, like, isn't state space a kind of more modern solution for that tends to perform better? Kind of like Mamba and like...
Yeah, so the fun thing, don't tell anyone, the guy that did Mamba was from the recruiting Gemma team.
Really?
He left, and then, okay, yeah, but he left and published earlier. But it's the same research.
Right.
So it's sad that we didn't release earlier. But that's the same people. And yes, they're trying to deal with too much memory. But there is still, if I'm not mistaken, the problem is if the context window gets too long, recurrent neural networks have some issues, right? It's not super good on the haystack tests, and so they're trying to fix that problem. Make sense? Next.
Hi, yes, firstly I would like to say thank you very much for this talk. It was very insightful. And the question I have is, so you're talking about using, Gemma to build things and let you know like what we've built. So I'm somebody who, in the future wants to develop my understanding and use of Gemma for, passion projects. And obviously Gemma's quite new and everything. And I'm like a lot of people, I'm fairly new to this idea of LLMs, etc. How would you advise approaching this for, someone who's a rookie such as myself in terms of trying to find a good problem that would be suitable for, using Gemma and things like that?
That's a very good question. If you're a rookie, and I'll be very honest here, the easiest way to access Google AI top technology is through Gemini, because it's one API call. You don't need to worry about anything. It will be the best results, but it will not solve all your problems. If you want to run something completely on your machine, for example, on my Mac here, Gemini cannot do that because you need an API call, right? You need the internet. Or if you don't want your data to go to a cloud provider, for example. Or if you want to make changes to the model, you cannot change the proprietary model, right? It's what's available there. So in these situations, Gemma would be better. The easiest way to use today Gemma is using a tool called Ollama, right? I hate that name.
Sorry, how do you spell that?
Ollama. I hate that name. And so it's a way to run the model completely on your machine, right? If I start now, it would be running in 10 minutes, right? So Ollama is the easiest path by far, and you can run it even on a low-end computer. There are other options, but I would start from there. We can play with cool stuff. Ollama gives you it's very good. I have to give it to them. And they're nice. I like them. They're cool friends. I just don't like them. So, for obvious reasons.
Thank you very much for that
Of
answer.
course. Next. Easy one, guys. Come on, easy one. Easy one. Oh, I need a mic.
Hi.
Oh,
You mentioned about the RIG rig approach. So my question is related to that. There is in the middle you have data commons. So is that tied to data commons, or can that be substituted with any database?
so that was fine-tuned for data commons. So it will understand that, look, this kind of data is available in data commons, and this is the query. You could maybe replace, but data commons is a way bigger database than you would have. If you want to do for your own database, which I guess is where you're trying to get, you can get there. You need fine-tuning a Gemma model to do that. And the data Gemma is a proof that that's doable and it works. So if you go into look into our, there's 2 notebooks, one for RIG and one for RAG. They're quite cool and easy to understand. But if you want to do for your own database, you have to do some step backward and fine-tune the model for you. But you can follow the same thing we did, right? Find things that are on your database replaced by a SQL query, for example. And that's fine-tuning Gemma is very straightforward. We are trying to make that easy, but we require some expertise there.
Thank you.
Of course.
Hi, thank you for the talk. I wonder if Gemma supports things like tool use or computer use, more advanced scenario.
That's a great question. As of today, it doesn't do function calling or tool use yet, but it's very good at following instructions. So I have a friend that's playing with a framework called Creo AI, which is for agent building. And he's using Gemma as the base model, Gemma 27B, I guess, the unsloth version. And it works super well because if you tell or you have this function and you can call in this situation, it will know that to give you the function that you need to use. But we don't have the proper formatting that other models have yet. But it's good to follow guidelines, follow instructions. For example, get this email and extract this in JSON format with this schema. It can do that even without the function calling. And given you give me space to talk about the quality of the model, I'll give you two sneak peeks here. In October, we released another model that I didn't put there because too many. There's a Japanese Gemma. And we did that because we want to try how to improve this model for another language. So we did the 2B in Japanese, which, as of now, I guess is the best Japanese language LLM for that size. We were also going to do the 9B. The problem is that the 9B is already the best Japanese LLM, but it's not trained in Japanese, right? Which is a little bit crazy. Of course, it has Japanese in the data set somewhere. But it's better than both competitors that from other companies, I'm not going to say names, and fine-tune versions of that model for Japanese. And we got that from the Tokyo Institute of Technology. They did the first fine-tuning for that, and Gemma 9B was already better. So it's very hard to increase the benchmarking language, but we're trying to do that anyway. So this is a good one. I guess that's the only sneak peek I'll give you. Thank you. Next.
Hi, my name is Patricia. Thanks so much for shedding a light on the Gemma models. My question takes us more to AI safety. So you mentioned that Gemma was built responsibly by design. So I want you to elaborate a few of the measures that you took to make sure that the model was trained safely and that also the way it's used is also safely. Yeah.
Of course. So we mentioned that the model was responsible by design. There's a bunch of things we did to the data that was used. First of all, we tried to clean as much as bad content as possible. Of course, it's not possible to do everything. There's bazillion of data there. So we tried to clean all of it. And the other thing we did is we cleaned benchmarks. So if you think these models are trained on the internet, right? Everything. The internet also has the benchmarks that they are evaluated later on. So the problem is, even if let me remove the website that has the benchmark. Other websites have reference to that and the data there, or proxies to that. So we made sure to clean also benchmark data, which makes them, that's why the models are older, let's say, like they are from, Gemma 2 is from July. They are still super powerful because they are not overfit to the benchmarks. And that's an important aspect. The other thing is, aside from cleaning, removing PII, which is information from your private information, like names, email, we remove all of that. And hate speech, we try to remove all of it. Of course, it's impossible to remove all of it. And we try to curate the data as much as possible and keeping a lot of data. This is a part of it. Again, the model can still do bad stuff, but on our internal benchmarks is maybe the best model in terms of safety on you ask something, and it will avoid answering bad stuff. And this is what it bited us back in Gemma 1 because it was refusing to answer some questions. In Gemma 2, we improved that a lot, and that made things better. But it's hard to explain to people that, look, you cannot be racist with the model. That's bad. But no, I want freedom. So, yeah, okay, do something else. But that's what we try to do.
Thank you. I think we can move on.
Okay.
Any questions? I think you will be here, right?
Sorry?
You'll be available
Yeah,
here?
yeah, I'll be around. I'll be around. Again, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. Oh, let me do one thing. One thing. I forgot to take a selfie with you people. Every time. You can say hi. Oh, that's a lot of enthusiasm there. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
This mine?
This is yours. And there's a chocolate for you.
Oh, that's
No,
nice.
this is from Google and not from me, actually. The guys over there asked me to give that. Yeah. Anyways,
People eat all the pizza.
the pizza's done. Thank you so much. And we'll go for the next speaker. And he's getting his laptop ready. So if you want to have a short break or something, have it.
It should take just a few seconds. But actually, I was supposed to have a demo yesterday, and my laptop just froze, and we didn't have a demo. So I hope it doesn't happen today. But if it does, it would be bad. Okay, hello. I'm Borys from Byne. And I think my presentation is going to be very different from the previous one. Good, thanks so much. It was a great presentation. And my presentation is going to be a lot more boring, part one. And it's going to be designed a lot worse. So apologies for that. No nice design here. And what I'm going to talk about is basically how do you deploy. It says LangChain, but it actually can be any orchestration framework. If you're building with Llama Index, if you're building with LangChain, I'm just gonna discuss some very practical issues we've encountered with basically how do you combine scalability and easiness in deploying applications that are based on the orchestration frameworks. So just a few words about the background and what brought me here into this kind of very probably boring topic is one of my co-founders, Andrei. He's kind of a very infrastructure person. And when we started working with him, I am more of a research person. We had that permanent conflict on like how much scalability, infrastructure, and stuff do we need. And we kind of learned the hard way and kind of tried to find the balance. So what I'm gonna try to talk about is kind of our takeaways from our own experience. So basically, once again, doesn't have to be LangChain, any kind of orchestration framework here. Once you build a chain, how do you actually turn it into an application? How do you actually serve your customers with that pipeline or that agent that you've built? You usually do that via an API. As Gus said, there are models that can run on your personal device nowadays, but that's still a fairly rare deployment mode. Usually, AI runs in the cloud or on your service. So once you build a chain, an application, an agent, a RAG application, a chatbot, whatever, you want to serve it to your customers. How do you do it? One option, just build an API. Serve it as a function via the API. Option two, use a specialized framework for serving your application. So LangChain has LangServe, which kind of takes your application and creates a web server based on that. Also very nice framework. Another option, and I'm gonna apologize myself here. I have an Amazon background, so I'm gonna be heavily referencing Amazon here. I know we are not in the right place to do it. I'm so sorry for that. I hope I'll get a chance to escape this place. I will not get stuck in the basement. But yeah, so apologies for that. But basically, another option is you can deploy your application with serverless. Here, a reference to Amazon. Google Cloud also has that. I'm sure it's amazing. But basically, how do you do it? You create a serverless function. You put your chain or Llama index instance or whatever into the serverless function, and then you serve it. It's also an option. So effectively, we are looking at two different approaches. We have the approach of a dedicated web server, or we have the approach of a serverless function. It's also fine. This one is fine. But you would need something called provision concurrency to do it. So what's provision concurrency? With serverless functions, if you just want them to start cold, it's going to be slow. So this approach is usually used for internal tools or situations where your application is not kind of running permanently. So if you're building a startup, if you're building a kind of a customer-facing project, something like that, you are probably going to create a web server. And here we come to the main question. Is, okay, I've built the server. I have an amazing LangChain application. It does RAG, it does agents, it does tool calling. It helps me a lot. It is super cool. But how do I actually get it to my potential customers, to my users? And how do I make sure that once it goes super viral, it just doesn't break down, and I don't run into a million gazillion dollars worth of costs? So basically, how do you normally do it? You just take your application and you put it into a container. Usually that's a Docker container. You upload it to a container registry with your cloud provider. It can be Google, it can be something else. And then you just deploy it to a managed container server. Most major cloud providers have that. I would say all of them. And that's kind of the step one. Okay, you have your nicely built server running on Google, Amazon, somewhere else. It's running well. You have the API, you can build an app on top of that. All looks cool. But then, did we miss anything? Yes, we did, unfortunately. So a lot of things that you probably need to kind of be mindful about. And they were hard for me to comprehend because I come from a research background. All I usually needed to do is just to get a model out of the door, and that was my job done. And then here comes my co-founder, who is an infrastructure person, and he's like, nope, that's not gonna cut it. And we kind of debated on most of those things, and a lot of this stuff I was actually pushing back on, but we kind of found the hard way that you need all of the standard DevOps practices, but kind of tweaked for AI frameworks. So that's what I'm gonna talk about in more detail here. So part one is the CI/CD pipeline. And I'm not sure, how many people here have any experience with DevOps? Any? Right? Okay, almost everyone, that's cool. Yeah, so basically that's really the basic stuff that probably everyone here is familiar about. So it becomes even a bit more relevant with frameworks like LangChain or something, because usually when you build agents or RAG, you're gonna have many infrastructure pieces, like a vector storage and all stuff like that. You don't want to provision them manually, so make sure you have a nice CI/CD pipeline there that uses infrastructure as a code. So we use Terraform. Pulumi is kind of becoming fashionable those days. You can use whichever one you want. Most cloud providers have their own proprietary version. Just make sure you use it. So for example, this is our own stuff. The CI/CD pipeline, the infrastructure as code files, just what we have. And the infra. So basically, you can be using just the API-based services. Like you can be using the model, say, from Google, like Gemini. You can be using Byne as your vector storage, and you just take the integration components from LangChain, and you connect to the API-hosted components, and job's done. But larger projects and a lot of startups actually tend to prefer to have all of the infrastructure hosted with the same cloud provider. If you work for a large firm, that might be the security requirement. If you work for a startup, you usually have credits. So that's why you want to have everything with that cloud provider who is giving you credits. Hopefully, it's Google, of course. So at the very least, what you would usually need, you would need a vector storage, you would need the caching DB, which reduces your costs, and you'll probably need one more DB, or it can be the same database for authorization, history, conversation, context, and things like that. Temporary document storage for ingesting documents, once again, for RAG. Some kind of LLM inference environment, like Google Vertex, AWS Bedrock, something like that. This is the very least. Probably you will need more, right? So just make sure they all sit in your CI/CD pipeline. It's all provisioned automatically, because I promise you, I kind of pushed back on my co-founder who knows this stuff. I was like, we don't need to build a good CI/CD from the start. We don't need to do it. Let's just kind of put it online manually and then it's gonna work well. No, it didn't. Don't repeat my mistakes. Don't push back on the people who know their stuff. And yeah, just do CI/CD and infrastructure as code. So one more thing which we've encountered is data ingestion and some tool calls with agentic architectures can take a very long time. Like such a long time that it can make your application freeze like permanently. So don't put them in the same container as your main application, as your main chain. Spin them out. And how you can do it, you can offload them to a serverless function. I'm sure Google has their own serverless functions. Amazon has Lambda. And Lambda, I'm very familiar with Lambdas. I'm sure a lot of people here are also familiar with Lambdas. If you're building a more complicated version, you will probably have some kind of like Kubernetes microservices or Docker Compose collection of containers. In either case, offload the bits of your chains that run too long. Offload them somewhere, doesn't matter where. And you will probably need a message broker or a queue manager and a temporary storage to manage the queue and ensure that what needs to process actually gets processed, doesn't get lost, and you can kind of avoid delays and freezes on your main application container. In our stack, we use Lambda or Knative, which are both serverless engines. We use Mini.io or S3 as a temporary storage, and we use RabbitMQ or SQS as a queue manager. This is the boring stuff. I promise it's probably one of the most boring slides in the whole presentation. Okay, you believed me. So credentials. A lot of people raised their hands here when I asked about the DevOps experience. So you're probably gonna be like, oh, why did he include that slide? That's so obvious. Yes, it is. So sorry for that. But just to remind, okay, you know, better be safe than sorry. Make sure you use the secrets manager, and why it is so relevant for LangChain and other applications like that is that you will usually have a lot of credentials in the same application. Like you're gonna have credentials to different databases, to the API provider, so in one application you can have like 7, 8 sets of credentials. So just make sure they're properly protected, because if your OpenAI key leaks and you don't have billing alerts or things like that, it might be an issue. Another thing to notice is logging. So there on the left is the logging in our prototype. And is it easy to navigate? Could you understand anything there? I think no, right? No. Yeah. So just make sure before you actually put your application, your project, your whatever into production, you actually read the documentation for the logging platform of your cloud provider. Because if you're just gonna be, okay, I have the loggings there, it should log everything, it should work nicely. No, it won't. As soon as people start using your app, your logs will become an absolute mess that you will not be able to track, you will not be able to understand the bugs, you will not be able to debug the app. Just please don't do it. Like, make sure you kind of set up logging to work natively with your with the platform provided by your cloud vendor. Another thing is cost management. Like, LLMs are seemingly cheap, and like, how much does a million token cost with Gemini, for example? Is it like $10? Anyone know? Like, it's probably something like $10, right? Seems very little, but for some specific applications, you can run out of endless budgets in like 10 minutes. For example, if you're doing things like scraping websites or personalizing emails, you're gonna run out of budget if you don't monitor it like super fast. So make sure you set up alerts. And this is kind of in between the engineer work and the DevOps work there. But effectively, you need to have that alerts, and a lot of frameworks like LangChain, like Llama Index, they provide token counts. So make sure you keep track of the number of tokens. And we use Sentry, or here is Sentry, to set up alerts. In our case, we have a lot of different alerts, but this is particular one. We have the kind of canary to give us a tuk-tuk warning that, okay, you used more than 1 million tokens this month. Maybe you should think about doing something, which is fairly useful. Another thing, which we kind of found out the hard way, is prompts are a mess. And it seems like they work for an engineer or like a prompt engineer if you have the person called prompt engineer. Never met someone called prompt engineer. But yeah, it's very often a work for DevOps too, because what we have witnessed in some companies is that people actually have a separate repository for prompts to make it easier to track them, to track changes to the prompts, investigate if the product performance drops after a change to the prompt. Because if you look into the papers, prompts and prompting can actually make a change of like 20–30% in performance of an LLM. That's crazy. That's crazy. So basically, make sure you track the prompts. You probably have a separate repo. Then you would need some changes to your CI/CD to actually load the prompts from that repo. Or at the very least, if you don't need that complexity, if you don't have that many prompts in your application, just make sure they are separated from the main code. Ideally, how we do it, you can make them importable as Python modules. Just easier than having them in some kind of TXT files, because then you run into problems with like relative imports and you don't want to get in there. Load balancing, I mean, basic stuff, but just, you know, for anyone who haven't done much work with the with DevOps. Also something we learned the hard way. LLM products, they have fairly long latencies, longer than the usual products. So you might run into the need to have proper load balancing much sooner with a lot less active users than you would need for a more kind of regular product, not based on an LLM. And actually, a lot of managed container services from different cloud vendors, they have automated load balancing, which is kind of included by default. Just make sure you don't switch it off. Or at the very least, if you do, make sure you can provision it later. Networking. LangChain applications, Llama index applications, all that stuff usually relies on a lot of different components. And well, usually you will have a VPC. At the very least for the managed container service, you will always have a VPC. But then, for example, if you have the serverless functions that do ingesting, for example, in Amazon, they are not going to be in the VPC by default. And then a part of your application is going to be inside the VPC, a part is going to be outside the VPC. So for everyone who is not a DevOps person here, VPC is like your own, a private subnet is like your own personal bit of internet that's protected from the outside. And it is kind of like a more security requirement. It's not going to make your app less scalable or something. But if you don't do it, or if you build your app in a way that doesn't enable you to add it later, you're going to have pretty major problems with compliance later. So even if you're a small startup, you start building now, you're like, I don't need all of that security stuff, it's going to be okay. Then you will have your first enterprise customer knocking on your door, like, knock, 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 can I have your product? It's super amazing. And you're going to be like, okay, I'll go get my security certification. I'll go get SOC 2 or ISO. And they're going to be like, nope, you're not getting that. And here is your enterprise customer just going to your competitor. It's pretty simple to do. It doesn't cost much. Why not do it sooner than later? There are some pro moves there, which I'm not going to cover. And I think we are going to do a webinar, probably next month. You probably don't need to have that from the start. And actually, you probably don't need to have that even when you start scaling. But actually, you may consider doing multi-container system, where you break your chain, your application into smaller chains and run them on separate containers, or potentially even do Kubernetes microservices if you expect to have very complex deployment requirements or very high load systems from the start. For example, if you're building an enterprise and you know that the chatbot you're going to build will be rolled out to hundreds of thousands of users immediately, which probably doesn't happen with throttled launches and stuff. But so probably if you need to use it, you know that you need to use it. But another thing is testing. And testing strategies and integrating testing into the CI/CD pipeline for LLM products is a whole separate topic. Because the kinds of things you need to test, the way you test, and the testing strategies are very different for LLM products. You usually have a set of tests inside your CI/CD pipeline, right? you would usually integrate your testing platform to make sure that once you deploy something, it passes a set of tests. And how you design those tests for an LLM-based product is also fairly interesting. One thing which we have found out is that for AI, you can have automated red teaming. What is red teaming is when you have like a hacker who comes to you and tries to penetrate your system, tries to get some data out of it, tries to get it to behave in the wrong way. For AI, there is automated red teaming. There are providers such as Plex that you can also integrate into the CI/CD. And for example, then, if you're working in a sensitive sector, your app, your change, your commit, you will not be able to release it if it's not been, or if it's not passed the auto red teaming exercise. So all of that is useful, but probably more if you are kind of working in enterprise, if you're working in a large company and you're releasing to a lot of users kind of immediately. Right, so that is very much the summary. It was probably shorter than people expected. David, sorry for that. And yeah, so basically that's my LinkedIn. If you want to add me, apologies for the badly designed presentation. Hope it was useful. I'm just gonna leave more time to the questions because, I mean, if I'm as an engineer, I just find questions to be more useful than just me talking for half an hour, boring everyone here to death. So yeah, questions welcome.
So much. That was really useful. And yeah, we have time for some questions.
Thank you. It's a very great talk. I really like it. Can I please ask one of the question? Because you mentioned that there is about 20 to 30% of performance increase when you actually do some prompt engineering on the large language model. How do you actually evaluate this performance if it's not based on a standard matrix?
Yeah, so basically the part about the prompt quality evaluation. So for that figure, I mostly rely on academic papers, is because we kind of have written best practices guidelines for the customers. And we were just looking at how much performance gain you have from doing different prompt optimization techniques. And kind of if you do all of the prompt optimization techniques, that is how much you can get how much extra you can get out of the model compared to like a slightly worse prompt.
Because if it's a LLM for design, especially for customers, because they are GenAI, so there is no specific answer for that. Then, like when you say, okay, it improved, is that based on the feedback from the customer, or was it actually the content which wasn't supposed to be in the original LLM showed up in the new one?
Yeah, so that exact figure is not based on any evaluations we've done. It's based on the papers.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, how do we evaluate is, I mean, we don't build the end products. We just build the infrastructure for people to deploy stuff in a scalable way. But I mean, sometimes it's just like people will come to you and say like, my performance dropped so much, like my customers are super unhappy. And you go to them, you go to the customer success channel and be like, okay guys, what did you do? And they're like, we changed the prompt. Then you look at the prompt and it's badly formatted. And it led to such a big change that like just customers noticed it, like their end users noticed it. But yeah, I mean, the figures are based on the academic papers.
Okay, thank you.
So in case in the cloud where there is like a GPU scarcity, especially for the bigger GPU, what's your best approach to deal with it? For example, it's like the A models and the H models maybe, not there anymore because everyone else is using it. So.
Right, so for that you can actually look into different options. Like you can have retries, potentially you can have like fallback options where your chain does a retry. If it's not able to connect to, for example, to a larger model, it can automatically scale back to a smaller model, which can be an option as well. But I would say that is usually very heavily platform dependent, right? Because, for example, if you use Bedrock as your model hosting inference environment, it may handle those situations in one way. If you're using, say, something else, Google Vertex, for example, or Gemini, it might handle those cases when it cannot serve your request at the moment in a very different way. So I would say that it's platform dependent, but usually you would have some kind of like retries and potentially like downgrades of the models that you use as a baseline solution. But then there are platform-dependent nuances.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Hi. So for your product, so let us say I have Kubernetes clusters, so I have manifest to deploy and use a GitHub action. So where do I use your product? So where does it sit, basically?
Do you mean our own product?
Your product, yeah.
Yeah, so basically what we provide are the pre-built pipelines and pre-built infrastructure as code. So basically all the DevOps stuff that you need to kind of start small and then scale confidently. So basically we are the DevOps for LangChain applications.
Okay. Second question is, so when you want a GitHub action, let's say, you have this test inside your GitHub action. Do you recommend you create static test, or will you use some sort of another LLM to create tests, so prompt engineering and randomly test, sort of fuzzing, if you like? Thanks.
Yeah, actually what we are looking into right now, and that's probably something that we are going to integrate into our pipelines, is automated red teaming. So what's automated red teaming is when you create some test scenarios that are actually executed by another LLM, and then that another LLM can go and kind of probe your own LLM and your own agent and just see if it works well, if it doesn't hallucinate, if it doesn't say the stuff it shouldn't, like mention competitors or provide you with bad advice or something. So that's just one side, but still when you have that LLM product, you would still usually want to do the normal kind of static tests, just see that it serves the cache properly, I mean, all the stuff like that. So you would want to verify both the LLM kind of probabilistic part, and you would probably need to use an LLM for that, but you would also need to verify like the more standard engineering side of things, and you just do that with static tests.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for your presentation. I enjoyed how you broke down all the different components of deploying an LLM app. Just to check, so you said you primarily use AWS components for your building infrastructure, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, what is is there a special service that you provide that AWS professional services don't provide? Is it cost related or some features or some?
You mean AWS professional services as in their own consulting when they help you to build stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, because we are not consulting, we're trying to build it as a product basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
But so you're saying AWS professional services, they're consulting, they don't help you build, is it? They're more
yeah, they're
just
gonna help you do that, but it's probably gonna cost a fortune.
Okay, so
Yeah.
okay, cool.
I mean, I shouldn't say anything bad. They're very professional, and you should probably go to them if you have a lot of budget, a lot of budget. So yeah, but unless you do it, then you should probably use a product, build it manually, or speak to me or something like that. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That's all the time we have for questions. Borys will stick around, so if you have any other question, please talk to him. We're gonna move on to our next speaker, who is Munish Dhall from Stratlytics. He's gonna talk about LLMs with RAG, specifically in the context of improving decision making. Munish, yeah, there he is.
Thank you. Hello all. Is it not on? Hello. Can you hear me? Hi. Good to see you all. I think thanks for coming in first of all, and thanks to the event organizers for organizing this beautiful event, and the speakers before me for sharing knowledge. I think you guys had pizza, good pizza, right? Had 2 sessions. Now you can't leave without listening me. So David, shut the door out, and they have to listen to me. Okay? So yeah,
Well, today I've been joined by my two colleagues, Kishore and Ranch. They are the guys who actually work with me implementing the AI solutions. So we work for the companies, we implement, we deploy the AI machine learning solutions. And we were the fortunate ones that we got the chance to actually work on GenAI. And our product, not product, but our solution, what we built for the client is running in production. So today we are not talking about any kind of conceptual things or hypothetical things. We are just walking you the journey, what we've been through for past couple of months, implementing GenAI and making this solution for the client. So I think we spoke about Google in the beginning, then in brief AWS. I think the evening is not complete if we don't talk about Microsoft Azure. I think they're going to kill me now, but I have to take a risk. Why I'm saying this? Because this is what I have used on the client side. And why I have used? Because this was the client's requirement. So I'm not biased towards any tool technology. We were given a chance to use this technology to develop something, and this is what we have done. Our services are running perfectly well. So I'll walk you through what we have done. You can ask any questions anytime you want, and do let me know if I'm going fast or slow. So yeah, these days, one of the hot topic, LLM. Everybody talks about it. 3 years back, when I started this journey of AI machine learning, so we used to tell stories to the clients. That AI machine learning is just like you're training a child. A model is a child. And when we train a child, at a certain moment, it starts taking its own decision. So we used to tell many stories. But with coming OpenAI, I think audience knows what exactly these LLM GenAI models are and what are their capabilities. Okay. So yeah, we have Gemini we talk about. AWS, I didn't speak anything much. Llama, OpenAI. So now, move further. So my topic today is about RAG, LLM with RAG. See, basically, OpenAI is good enough. If you ask him, write stories, jokes, do something, any funny stuff, it's good. But when it comes to serious business, then you can't rely on these funny stuff. You have to be very serious about information. Like one company, if they want their employees to gain information about their HR policies or any products or services, so then you have to be very careful. Any missing information, wrong information provided to your customer will get into a big trouble. So why we are using RAG? Because we want to stop LLM to go here and there, use its own knowledge, going to internet somewhere, but to use the data, what we are giving it to the database. We are pointing that LLM to a certain direction. So it should not go here and there, but stick to the data, what we want. Now, tokens. Now, this is something which actually, OpenAI understands. And we use various ways of tokenization and all. We don't rely on characters, kind of words, kind of phrases check, because any kind of a pattern search, those kind of things can also do the same thing. So OpenAI understands this language of tokenization and all. So what we're going to do, I will take you through the journey step by step, how the RAG is built, what we do while building a RAG, what we have to be careful about, and finally, we'll give you examples of the solutions what we built. So yeah, what is RAG? RAG is database, right? Now, what is database? Database comes from various sources of data. That data can be a text file, can be a PDF, can be a Word document, can Excel, table, unstructured. There are many ways the data is given to you. So you have to be very careful about reading that data properly, because data is everything. OpenAI or any LLM comes at the end. I will show you after a moment that in the whole scenario of LLM or GenAI stuff, what is the role of GenAI? We always talk about GenAI, but let's find out. So we got the files, we need to store the files in a setup wherever you are. You're using AWS, Azure, or Google, wherever, or local. The students use their own local drives also. You have to store it. What you have to do next is to read it. Now, reading depends on the type of data you're playing around. For text, you can just use your Python stuff, you can use it. For reading, for PDF, you have to use something specific, either PyPDF or you have to go by some kind of services provided. Now, as I have used Azure Stack in the whole scenario, I'll be using that. I'll be giving you the whole example of what Azure stuff we have used. And I am not using any other technology because this is what we have done. So I'm just sharing my personal experiences with you. Yeah. So metadata. Now, metadata is something which becomes important when you're dealing with PDF kind of stuff. Now, in PDF, suppose, give an example, that there's a 10 pages PDF given to you. In the first page, there's a proper index header is given. But on the second page onwards, you don't have a proper header and footer. Now, while loading those kind of data into the database, you cannot load the whole entire PDF against one row in a record. You have to break down the data either in chunks or in pages and to load one by one. So the first page, when you load it, it has the proper header footer. It actually describes what the document is about. But the next pages doesn't. So metadata is something while you have to append something to each and every page of PDF while loading it so that you can make a continuity. Suppose there is a PDF describing the process, how to use this particular process to execute a job. Or the first page doesn't have it, but second, third page doesn't have it. So you have to keep appending that information to make a continuity. Now, vector embeddings. Now, we always heard about this stuff very recently because every OpenAI or LLM company is coming up with their own embedding models. Previously, also, it used to happen with using Python normal stuff. But now we have something more advanced models which have more dimensions of thing. So what we have used is the ADA002 text embedding model. With a dimension of 1536, but the token input string size, what it used to take was something 2000 something, so it was low. So then it came up with a text embedding large model. Now there is a dimension more than 1536. It is good. It captures a lot of things, but there is no generic formula to use one particular embedding model over the other. You have to find out what is your purpose, how long response time you want, because bigger dimensions increases the response time. So there is no generic formula behind anything. You have to go by the data. Coming previously, for the students, I would say, if you don't want to spend money and you want to play around with the data only, the easy stuff is you just read the record in a Python data frame and then use any Python library like fuzz to search that data. That is a more cheaper, economical way to play around if you don't want to spend money. Now, what we have done is we have used our documents, stored it somewhere, we have read it, appended the information if we need to, and then we are using some embedding and storing into the database. Now, database has both the things available. It has text as well as embeddings. And why we do that? We could easily store the vector or the text. Why we are storing both? Because, as I said, there is no generic formula so far which you can plug and play with OpenAI or any LLM model. So you have to test many scenarios with different set of data to find out what extraction works better for you. So loading can be chunk by chunk, which is like few lines of every page, and then with the overlap. Normally the overlap of 20% works very well to make a continuity. And you can load page by page also. So whatever the loading part, why I'm saying it again is because loading is important, because extraction is dependent on the loading. If you have loaded the whole document against one record, while extracting, the whole page will come out. It will not be a part of page will come out. And why it will definitely impact your token size while extracting, because every model works with a particular token size. Be any model say that we work with 1,000, 32,000 or 128,000 of tokens. Normally when you really work in a production system, you cannot play around with 100,000 tokens because the response time is hugely more. You cannot survive with that. The users who are sitting on the other side, they want the responses in seconds, 7 seconds, 8 seconds, 5 seconds. They can't wait more. Now, as I said before, like we could have stored only the vector. Why vector in text is stored? Because the extraction can be anything. While extracting the data out of your database, you have different scenarios. First is you can just go by the text and text similarity. Second is you go by the vectors only, which works perfectly well. And there is a more called hybrid, which is a combination of text as well as vectors. So when it goes for hybrid, it internally ranks both the things, vectors as well as text, and find out which is better suited for you and will give you the results out. So far, what we have done, we have prepared the database. Now, if you see this particular part, this is actually the heart of the project. OpenAI, Gemma, or whatever model you can pick up, those come at the later stage. This is the heart of the whole project. Let's move further. Now, we have designed a user journey for you. Like the user is now trying to find out how to get the answers back. So if a query is originated by the user, then what will happen is we actually want to find out the documents related to that input query. Suppose this has the information about orders, invoices, inventory management and all. And your input query is how to reach out to London. So that means my RAG doesn't have that information for you. How will I find out? I will use this input query, vectorize the input query again, and then search into the database. But why do I vectorize the query? Because the same language, what is existing in the database, I have to search using the same language. So vectorized query will go to the vector database, will bring the data. Now, irrelevant question I said, how to reach London in a database of orders and invoices. This output will be nothing. So this output, which can be a chunk and document, will be nothing, will be a zero data, or there will be some data, but the data size will be less. So there you can find out that your query is not related anywhere to the RAG. But when there is an in-scope query, like how to raise the order, how to raise the invoices, then what will happen is this query will navigate over here and will bring the relevant chunks of data out. Suppose if you're asking how to raise the orders, this database has the information of orders, invoices, and inventory management. Those orders records will only come out, the rest will sit in the database. Now what will happen? Now we have to just combine the database, because what happens is we have to find out how many data or chunks of data we want. Suppose there are 10 documents of order, 10 for invoices, 10 for inventory. When I ask a question how to raise the order, it exists only in the 3 documents. When I say search the query, and I give as a parameter of called top. Top means I want the top 3, top 4, top 5. So all those top 4, 5 document what I'm asking will come back over here, which sits over here. I will combine all these documents into a one string. Like there is a one context, one paragraph of thing I have combined. Now what will I do next is I will use those combined extracted documents and will attach it with a prompt. Because OpenAI, I will show you where it comes at the later stage. As of now, we're just using the data, cleaning the data, combining the data, and preparing that data so that that data can generate the output for you. So what we need is, before going to LLM, we need the input query, which is raised by the user. Second, the related document which is coming out of the database. Third is prompt. Now what is prompt? Prompt is basically suggestions, instructions to the OpenAI that please execute my query in a certain way. Please give the response in a detailed way. All this information together goes to LLM. Now, I will go it further, but just have a look. For every RAG-related project, what the role of LLM is? That this is waiting for you to give you the input question, to give you all the relevant documents what are needed to generate answers from the input question, against the input question, and the prompts. The prompts are, please give me a bullet-wise information. Please give me a detailed information about this topic. So those kind of prompts. Now there is a new kind of concept is prompt engineering coming up. Those guys who write prompts, those are the prompt engineers. In the prompts, you can define the output. I want the output in a JSON format only. I want the output in a paragraph format only. So those three combination altogether goes to LLM. LLM will then generate the response for you, and what it will do, it will create something which is the response based on these particular combination. But that response can be wrong or can be right. So before going to the user, we have to validate that response. Validation is the most important part, because LLM hallucinates. You pick up any latest technology, any kind of Azure, Google, or wherever you go, hallucination happens. You have to stop by writing prompts by the way you have written the programs of Python. You have to do that. Any company says that no, the new version is coming up that doesn't hallucinate. It's not correct as of now. It may be true in the coming days, but not now. So what you have to do, you have to check the response generated by the LLM. Now, how you do that? There are different ways, different parameters: groundedness, relevance, coherence, fluency, English grammatical, it is correct or not. So basic ones are the groundedness and the relevance. Now, what are these two terms? Relevance is how close the answer generated by LLM is to your question is. Now, if you say, where is the Google's office? The answer is Google office is right at the corner. So these are related, relevance. Question and answers are related. So normally, in OpenAI, you give the ratings like up to 1 to 5, like how close your answer is to the reality, to the relevance. If it is most relevant, it goes to 5. If it is less, it goes to 1. So in this scenario, if I say, where is Google's office? Someone says right at the corner, the relevance is 5 because it is very close to reality. Second is groundedness. Now, what is groundedness? In relevance, what we said, how close your answer is related to the question. Groundedness is how close your answer is related to these documents. This is what is groundedness. Suppose you have asked the question of how to raise the orders. Now this has 30 documents, 10 for orders, 10 for invoices, 10 for inventory management. When you pick up top 4 documents, this top 4 documents will make one kind of a big text which we are giving to the OpenAI. Now, if I ask a question, how to raise order, and the answer is to raise the order, you go to this particular web URL, you click this and this and this, and you add items, and then you generate. And if that particular information is residing on these documents, what we have extracted from the database, the groundedness score is high. So what is groundedness? The answer, closeness of the answer against the data. That is groundedness. And what is relevance? The closeness of answers related to the question asked. Now, if these two things are close enough and higher than 3, which is the normally threshold we give, so then you send that response back to the user. So if you see here now, the upper part here is we call as RAG, which is we are preparing the database. Now, what is that data? Sorry, 5 minutes? Okay, okay. So the upper part is RAG. The data is created. The lower part is using that RAG and generating the results, right? Okay. Okay. Now, so I'll just point out quickly. Okay, I won't take much time. So the challenges and solutions. The challenges what we face in this journey was. So first challenge what we faced was like the people expect too much, because everyone has a free OpenAI account. They go to OpenAI, they write some stuff, they get the answers back, and they feel very happy about it. They see getting the answers. Now, if you just put in your corporate office, and if you just plug in this OpenAI, it will work for you. It doesn't work. Fun is different than the corporate. Corporate is a serious business. Fun is something different. Yes, open your OpenAI and ask him how to become rich. It will give you 10 ideas to become rich. Maybe something will work or not. But that's up to you. But in the corporate serious business, you can't play around with that. In the corporate, if you are asking something, it has to be consistent all the time. If you say, what are the recent discounts offers you have? If you get 3, he gets 2, it's wrong in it. Then he will sue the company, because that's the wrong information you're giving. So overestimated LLM capabilities, please educate the clients also. Please do not ask too much. This is one of the AI NLP model. It cannot give you the ways to become rich. Okay? Then inconsistent response time. That is very, very important. Response times has to be kind of within the range which the user expects. If I'm using an application, if I'm getting the response time sometimes in 3 seconds, sometimes 30 seconds, I will stop using the app. I won't go again. Maybe it is hitting 1 minute also, so it's not a good thing. Then lack of response consistency, which I just told you now, that one person is getting the 3 discounts offer, second is 2. So this is inconsistent. This is not to be done, because the other person will definitely come to the company, will ask for more discounts now because you have given the wrong information. Now, handling tabular data. Now, this is something which we have explored recently, and we are successful in that, which is reading the SQL data and the Excel data. This is very, very important, because all those information which the tabular information like orders kind of things, and any kind of data which a company wants to circulate to their users in a due time, in a weekly time, it comes in tabular. And tabular structure, if you don't believe me, trust, just make one table of 5 rows, put it in the GPT and ask one same question 10 times. It will give you once or twice wrong information. Wrong information means incomplete information. Then persona-based information extraction. Now, persona is something, if information is basically for the manager, not for the executive staff. Other information belongs to the HR staff, not for the other staff. So we have to find out the way we have to tag the data so that that particular data should not go into the wrong hands. Because if a person is asking about my holiday status, how many holidays do I have? If a person who is working for 20 years might be having 50 holidays and you are having 10. So that's wrong, actually, giving information for one user to other. That's not allowed. I'll go quick, the last one slide I will say. Okay. So this is our latest development, because our client wanted the users to use WhatsApp. Now, WhatsApp is very common these days. All those web apps, going to the web apps is old-fashioned now. So WhatsApp is something new. So what we have done is we have integrated all those customers with WhatsApp. Now, WhatsApp is again attached with Azure Bot. Why we have used Azure Bot? Because we do not want OpenAI to be exposed to the users directly. That is one of the main points. because if OpenAI is exposed directly to the user, then prompt injections and all funny stuff, what in the first presentation that guy told, all that bad stuff will come. Right? So Azure keeps a log, keeps profanity away by certain ways, filter the data, send to OpenAI. OpenAI sends that data back to the user. The vector database is given because for this particular client, the requirement was that the data refresh rate is quite high. Every week, 10 days, they want to keep refreshing the data. Okay. Okay. Sorry, this is the last one, and that's the next is the thank you one. Don't worry about it. The last one. Okay. I won't bore you much. So, if I just want to see you what things have been done, because we are just sharing our experiences with you. This is such we have done in the past. We are sharing with you. This is nothing on the bookish. And trust me, for last 1 year, we are nullifying the theories which are in the market. Trust me, this is an altogether different game when you really want to work in a serious business. All those conceptual theories which are written in the Google or anywhere in the help documents, they mostly are wrong. So this guy wanted LAM with LLM. Now what is LAM is? Action model using the language model. So what is action is? Like I want something to be done by OpenAI or any other LLM. So that it takes my instruction, executes the API and do the things for me. Suppose if you want, okay, just book me a ticket to America. So it does that ticket booking, give you the confirmation. So in this scenario, we wanted actually some kind of a policy to be given to the user, and that user should be using some kind of a Teams or WhatsApp or whatever they want to use it. And those policies information are given anytime you want. You just log into your system, see what is this in that policy, information is given to you. And if you want to book something, just straight away say, okay, book me a holiday or whatever you want to do, it does the job. So this is the way things happen. So yeah, this was the last slide I have. Yeah, this is the most interesting one, which says thank you. So yeah, so but I would say one thing, that if we'll meet again sometime in the future also, I'll explain you what this tabular processing and all those processing happens. But if you really want to know how things actually practically work, I will pass my information to you guys and you can pass it over. We have actually worked on for last 2 years on this stuff, and we have come to a stage where we can say that those documents are wrong. So don't follow the same steps. Okay, we can help you reach up to that stage where we are after 2 years. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much, Munish. That was a really enlightening talk. We don't have time for a lot of questions, but we could do a couple. Yeah.
If you ask me an easy one, I'll buy you a beer. Okay? If you ask me a tough one, then you have to buy me one. Yeah.
Sure. What Azure AI services did you use?
Sources.
So you said like content moderation and...
Yeah. Yeah, good one. Content moderation is the old one now. Content safety has come up. So content moderation is an old-fashioned one. But the beauty of Azure AI is Azure AI comes in with the inbuilt of content filtering, which is a replica of content moderation and content safety. So what content filtering does is, if you write something bad, it gets filtered out and it raises an alert for you. So that straight away goes to the escalation team. Okay? Does that answer your question? Okay.
Yeah. So I have a question. Like we seen the data processing, pre-processing, and you made a retrieval logic and all these things. But what's the evaluation process? How do you evaluate RAG? Because that's a very important step. I feel I struggle a lot in that. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. So evaluation is the most important part. But there is no such thing as of now that you can just plug and play, find out that this is particular, give me the ratings of 0.5 or 1 or 98, 90 out of 100. So what we normally do is, we ask the user, business user, to provide us 100 questions. Okay? We generate answers of those 100 questions and circulate back to the business user. The business users verify out of 100, all these are good. If the some are not good, we replace them with new questions. So we make a database of 100 questions minimum, which has a different sections of questions, different groupings of question, and the answers are generated. And based on the groundedness and relevance, we give some scoring there. I showed you that there is a slide of groundedness and relevance here. Now, this particular one, groundedness and relevance, this gives scoring of each response generated by the user. So all of those 100 questions will have those responses for verification and evaluate and groundedness.
Is it a manual process? Sorry.
It's not a manual process.
Okay.
We give the instruction to OpenAI that this is the question. These are the few shots learning. If your answer is close to the question, then give relevance of 5 out of 5. If the answer is related to the data, which is this one, then give 5 out of 5. So all those 100 questions will have those ratings. Now, once the business users say, I'm pleased with the results of these 100 questions, we make those 100 questions as a baseline version. Next time, when we put a new code to production, before going to production, we run those 100 questions against using the new API, which is the new code. Then we compare those values of evaluation against the 100 questions evaluation, which is already verified by the business. If those matches, then we say 98% our product is good and safe.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. Because I came across a couple of tools, in different scenarios like RAGAS. There is a tools like RAGAS and all these things. So I want to understand that it's a combination of hybrid approach, sometimes manual, sometimes it needs kind of tools which is not matured yet. But I just want to bring this question. So it's very important that evaluation of RAG is very important, as important to data pre-processing.
Yeah, I mean, see, these days some new terminologies are coming up, just like red team testing. You know what red team testing is? You make, say, 2 LLMs together and say, talk to each other. Say, yeah, play ping pong. Okay. Yeah. But the beautiful concept which is coming now, which is the autogen part, which is the multi-bot part. As of now, you are playing with one bot only. And this latest technology, this so-called, will become legacy soon. So what will happen is there will be multiple bot, that you will give one primary bot a responsibility. That primary bot will talk to multiple bots behind the scene, get the job done, and will give you the confirmation, job done, go to sleep. So this is going to happen now.